my pocket shorts.
How do you follow up with clients?
Hello, my name is Abigail, and I will be your host during this video. The topic of this offering is about how you follow up with clients to whom you are presenting products. The follow-up is an art in itself because you must be tactful in how you approach this potential business going forward. In this short video, we will discuss some of the key factors that you should follow. There are many different methods of follow-up, and each is effective in its own right. We will go over a few of my favorites here, and I am sure you can think of others. Let's get started. Anytime you visit a customer and show them products, how do you decide to follow up with that client? How do you move your sales process along? Hopefully before the end of your last communication you discussed next steps, but what we want to do is create the capability to be almost to call this customer or contact them at will. Now, when we say contact at will, we do not want to call them constantly, but we do want to move them comfortably along in the sales process to contract signature. Now you are not guaranteed to close every sale, but how you handle this part of the sale, the follow-up, can greatly increase your close rate. There are many different ways to keep open the lines of communication. Whether you follow up by phone, email, or do it in person, the timing and manner of the follow-up are important. Actually, it is best to use a combination of methods to stay in contact with your clients and keep your product in front of them. The main thing that we need to emphasize is that there is a difference with being a welcome person to hear from than a salesperson being a pest. We hope to help you figure out the best medium that works for you. The tricky part about how you consider the follow-up process is when do you physically start the follow-up process? This is best determined by you, of course, considering the client's interest in your products, the process that you will need to follow to introduce your product into the client's business, and your honest internal assessment of what is needed to close this deal. After each sales call, I usually like to replay the entire sales call in my mind to remember all we discussed. This way, I can update my list of follow-up items and communications that I want to have with the client. Also, I can evaluate if I think I handled the call properly and if I need to clarify anything for the client in my follow-up activities. I will say that personally, a lot of your follow-up communications will be based on what you feel the customer needs to know, and an assessment of your personal relationship with the client at this point of the sales process. When I speak of personal relationship, I am speaking of your ability to present information and not alienate the client. The amount of contact that you use, along with the type, is a balancing act. Now, my first choice for any follow-up is the telephone, and in these days and times, the cell phone for sure. Being in sales and always on the road, I dedicate a certain amount of my time daily to phone calls for various business purposes, one being follow-up phone calls, the other time being prospecting, internal check-ins, etc. With the phone calls, you really need to have a grasp on how much do you really call this client. No matter the person, taking a phone call is the most personal choice a client can make. Also is a good gauge of how this client may feel about you personally and how they want to do business with you. To me, talking to a customer by phone is second most desired to seeing the whites of their eyes. In this, I mean that I feel comfortable in that I get some sort of feel of body language. Of course, your second choice is email. Email is not as personal as the phone call because your communication is in black, white, and on virtual paper. You can hide a lot in how you communicate with people, but it is the easiest to hide your feelings or let them out totally in how a person communicates in their writings. Last but my most favorite is the in-person follow-up. Now it is the most preferred method for me, but not always the most efficient. It should be used as judiciously depending on the need. I like to say I save my in-person visits for large fires in my territory and closing sales, but to each their own. You also need to make the consideration of, is your travel time best spent elsewhere, closing other deals in particular. As we proceed through this video, we will go through some scenarios for your review.
We are going to review a few different scenarios that you will encounter in your sales life that require follow-up. We will discuss some various methods that you can follow up in each scenario. Let me say, though, that this is just our opinion in this educational piece, and remember that you must assess each sales situation on its own merit. In our first scenario, we will discuss what you may want to consider in the case of first contact. This is follow-up after the first time you meet someone. First contact with a client is an important time. Whether you found this customer through a cold call or the customer called you, how you move the sales conversation forward with a customer is important. Since at this moment, you are in a very opportune situation, you want to set the customer's expectations. In fact, in many ways, it is an opportunity for you to train the customer on how you intend to follow up, now and in the future. To show your overall attention to detail. 1. During the meeting, take copious notes about your discussions, making sure you especially note intricate details. 2. Make sure the customer and you understand the expected deliverables after this initial meeting and a timeline on when they will be delivered. 3. If any further information is needed to get the deliverables together, then ask the customer for help in attaining the necessary information from his or her internal resources. 4. Ask for the opportunity, when all information is ready, to be able to reach out and ask for the chance to present the matters to your coach or sponsor before they present to the overall organization. 5. Offer to personally attend the internal presentation to the overall organization, since the deal is your deal to win. 6. Make sure that you leave your team enough time to compile the deliverables, that you deliver all items ahead of schedule to the customer. After your initial meeting with any client, it is a courteous habit for a salesperson to send a follow-up email thanking the customer for their time, summarizing the meeting, and closing with a list of follow-up items. At the same time, in concluding the email, it is essential that you ask the client to confirm that they read the email. You can do this by asking the customer to confirm that you did not miss any items that you, as the salesperson, intend to send them in your next steps. By doing this, it accomplishes 2 things for you. 1. You know the customer read the email, and 2. The customer is letting you know that you have the correct list of items expected after the meeting. If any more information is needed from the customer's organization, I usually ask for contact information for customer resources that I may need to speak with. At the same time, I ask customers to contact the internal resources for me, ahead of me reaching out to them, so they know, ahead of time, why I am calling or emailing them for an appointment. I need some sort of pre-introduction to make the opportunity to make contact easier. In your follow-up after first contact, you are not only looking to deliver valuable information to the customer, but at the same time you desire to make that great first impression. I want to note for the topic of this discussion that I successfully fulfilled all the deliverables and got them to the client for review within a week after our meeting as promised. Now you should be in the right place for the next follow-up step, the follow-up phone call. A few days to about a week after the deliverables have been sent out, I will give the customer a phone call. The phone call is for a couple of reasons. 1. To get a feel for the customer's current state of interest. I want to see, has the temperature changed for some reason. 2. I want to make sure that the customer understands what they have received. And 3. I want to control the narrative. When I speak of controlling the narrative, I want to know what the customer is thinking after reviewing my information, and I want to make sure they understand fully the value of what they have read. I want to make sure I steer as much as possible their perceived value in my product. Right here, if needed, I can ascertain if some additional information may be needed to close some gaps with this customer to keep this potential sale moving in the right direction. The first phone call is important. I make it a habit to save a tidbit of information to share on that first phone call that was not shared in first contact. Some tidbit that adds a special value to the call. This move also creates in the customer's mind that each of your phone calls will offer something special to your conversations. As a salesperson, there is no greater reward than being invited back. In this case, it is not repeat business that we are speaking of, but the customer asking us back to interact. A good follow-up is when a customer asks, "Can I ask you a few more questions? Can you get some additional information for me, please? Can you revise your quote to add this additional module of your software that you just explained to me, please? I think I find that module of value and would like to propose this to my team." From here, you try to find a way you can strengthen the bond in your customer-account executive relationship. You want the customer to want to hear from you. Obviously, by now, the customer has established in their minds their own perceived value about your products and solutions. And in every discussion with this customer, you add value to their purchase consideration. The sale is moving in the right direction for sure. The next question is now what?
The negative customer experience.
Now, from time to time, in your sales life, you will run into the not-so-positive situation, the dark side of what we call the negative sale. It is not a scary event, but one that when you encounter it must be handled quickly. You always want to put a small fire out before it grows to a blaze. In this next scenario, it seems that a counterpart of mine is making a great presentation to some clients, but he has a doubter in the crowd. You may want to address the doubter here or follow up later for a more private conversation. Either way, you just need to make sure you take care of this fire. Now you have figured out how to successfully follow up with your clients. You have gained the key position of influence that you desired to have with this deal, with this sale. You can move it along as needed, and if you handle this new granted level of communication correctly, you will gain greater control of the flow of the deal. You will get to steer the boat, let us say. What a salesperson wants is a level of trust with the client that they consider you more of a consultant in the sales process than an actual salesperson. This means that the customer puts you at a different level, a more special place. It gives you a level of prestige over your competitors. This is exactly where you want to be. In the age of the internet, you can easily find a lot of innovative methods to stay in touch. Let's look at some of the unique methods of follow-up that I came across. In my research, I have seen used. Each of these is unique in its own right. One of the most innovative follow-up methods I have seen, and one that should be considered, is the video follow-up. How innovative if you can incorporate this into your follow-up best practices. See this example from Zippy Software.
Hi Georgia, this is Mike again from Zippy Software. It was great connecting with you earlier this week. I just wanted to follow up and see if you had any questions or might be ready to move forward with Zippy. I'm excited that your company could be seeing the same results in the near future. So feel free to hit reply to this email or give me a call and
A smart choice. A smart choice.
Back in the day, we used to communicate between clients and their salespeople in a whole different way. In this social media age, the gratification is much faster, and the rewards are quicker to attain. At the same time, you must be more creative in following up with customers when there are so many distractions trying to get their money. You need to follow up to make sure that your customers understand your value and your company's products. Good hunting, and don't forget to follow up.
By the grace of God, my pocket, not yours.